Miami has a problem. Okay, so they have a few problems, but none of them stand out even a fraction as much as the confusing case of quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. So let me start by saying that I don't think there has ever been a more maligned and criticized quarterback than Tua since he was drafted. Which is weird, since in the lead up to him getting drafted, he was the golden boy, could do no wrong, until he was drafted by the Dolphins. Weird. It's almost like there's a universal bias against the team. But we're not here to speculate on that. We're talking Tua. So Tua was drafted coming off a decorated college career at Alabama that featured highs like winning the national championship, and lows like it ending with a hip dislocation. His strengths being his accuracy and poise, his weaknesses being his size, mobility, and perceived lack of arm strength. Now, after a rocky start under a now-fired head coach, we find ourselves at the end of Tua's 4th year, the last 2 having been under a new head coach. And to say that the reviews have been mixed is a dramatic understatement. As we stand on the precipice of a potential long-term extension being signed, I want to push back on a couple of narratives from either side. First, it needs to be said that regardless of how you feel about Tua, he is our guy. For now. To everyone clamoring for him to get gone, who do you propose we replace him with? Now, while I would be interested in seeing what say, Justin Fields would look like in McDaniel's offense, I'm not open to trading Tua for him. We could bring him in for a third or something and maybe provide some actual competition for Tua, which if you recall is something we did not do with Tannehill. Regardless, productive quarterbacks like that don't grow on trees, and we can't simply pluck another one. We're also not in position to draft any of the top quarterbacks coming out. And as much as the naysayers hate it, Tua has improved every year, and it's easy to understand why the belief would be that he may continue to. You don't move off a quarterback without having a replacement on hand. The same way you don't quit your job without having another one lined up, or sell your car before securing a new one. We've seen teams do it before. Remember Washington when they had Kirk Cousins and couldn't agree on a long-term deal? Stand by for the preemptive comments torching me for daring to compare Tua and Kirk. I'm not, by the way, but looking over his stats did reveal a pretty funny coincidence that leads me to my first pushback against the Pro-Tua side. Tua defenders, would you please craft an argument for keeping this young man that does not revolve around his stats? Stats don't mean anything. Congratulations, he can put up numbers. Lots of guys can put up numbers. Stafford put up numbers in Detroit for 12 years. 45,109 yards and 282 touchdowns. How many Super Bowls did they win? Kirk Cousins puts up numbers. Enough to earn him 4 Pro Bowl appearances, but no one would ever herald him as a great NFL quarterback. But something stuck out to me. In 2022, Kirk Cousins threw for 4,547 yards and 29 touchdowns to 14 picks. Now, if those numbers sound kind of familiar to you, hold on to your hats. The reason is because they are eerily similar to Tua's stats this year. In fact, they have the same exact amount of touchdowns and interceptions. Now, the Vikings went 13-4 en route to the playoffs, where their season would unceremoniously end, ironically enough, getting knocked out of the wild card round. Funny enough, though, that wasn't even the highest total Kirk's ever thrown for. So back in 2016, Kirk threw for 4,917 yards. Can you name any of his receivers? Now, there were a couple notable names there, but nobody that we would honestly compare side by side with, say, Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill. And the reason Kirk didn't lead the NFL in passing yards that year is because a couple of guys, most notably Drew Brees, were too busy getting their totals over 5K. But I can already hear y'all click-clacking away, but Tua led the league in passing yards. Big deal. Jameis Winston has led the league in passing yards before. It didn't stop Tampa Bay from moving off of him. Of course, that was also partially facilitated by the fact that he threw 30 interceptions that year.
You look at my numbers, I'm balling. I got to stop giving the ball to the other team, right? Like, it's not a trick question.
And Tom Brady also becoming available and deciding that he wanted to get in on some Floridian football action. My point is, though, stats can be deceiving. It also doesn't help that almost half of Tua's passing yards went to one receiver. Not that that's a problem, as I, for one, believe in getting a true number one receiver and utilizing him as such, but that means that we can't give Tua all the credit for his passing yards. But I digress. To our anti-Tua crowd, assuming the organization caved to you and moved off Tua, who exactly do y'all propose we replace him with? What quarterback that's available right now represents an instant upgrade over him? Take your time, we'll wait. But no matter what the answer is, it's laughable. Tua is very good, which means that if anyone has someone better than him, odds are they're a franchise quarterback and therefore not coming to us. We'd be foolish to move off a quarterback as productive as this one. Going back to my Washington example, they moved off Kirk. How's that gone since then? Yeah. That being said, if we could somehow secure a great replacement, then we shouldn't be afraid to act. Let's not forget the LA Rams moved off of Jared Goff after he got them to a Super Bowl. Because sometimes it's okay to admit that your guy is good, but maybe not good enough. Of course, Tua could always come back barnstorming in his 5th year and lead us to glory, rendering all of this moot. But until that happens, what do you think? What should Miami do? Is Tua the guy? Let me know in the comments. Try to keep it civil. And I'll see you guys next time.